Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Whiting, Executive Director of St. John's Church Foundation here in Richmond, Virginia. Today I'm in the graveyard. I'm tucked underneath this porch right outside the parish hall because it looks like it's about to rain. It's a typical Richmond summer day. It's hot and muggy in the graveyard, and I'm glad to be here though so I can tell you more stories about the graveyard and bring you some history about St. John's Church. If you're just joining us for this vlog, I encourage you to check out the previous 3 vlogs. That'll give you a little more context, a little more history about the graveyard. You can find those on our YouTube channel. And speaking of our YouTube channel, you'll also find some really good talks we've had, some interviews we've had with historians and scholars, and I hope you enjoy those as well. And lastly, before I forget, I want to thank everybody who purchased a Graveyard Nerd t-shirt. By purchasing a t-shirt, you're helping us with some much needed earned income right now since we're closed to COVID-19, so thank you so much. And I look forward to hopefully seeing people around town wearing their Graveyard Nerd t-shirts. So today is vlog number 4, and I have a question. What do Thomas Jefferson, Benedict Arnold, Jacqueline Ambler, and Rebecca Ambler have in common? Well, first we're going to start with Benedict Arnold and Arnold's raid. Now, Benedict Arnold came through Richmond in 1781 and camped his troops here at St. John's Church and also went west and burned Richmond to the ground. I also have an ulterior motive for bringing up this topic today because on Sunday at 1 o'clock on our Facebook page, I'll be interviewing Bert Dunkerly, who is an historian and also a park ranger at the Richmond National Battlefield Park, which is just right down the street here at Chimborazo. So I figured I'd do a little tie-in, talk about Benedict Arnold, and then you could learn more on Sunday with my interview with Bert. But just a little bit of background. I won't be giving away too much because I want Bert to tell the story. But turncoat Benedict Arnold, by January 5th, 1781, he'd come up the James River, and his troops met the Richmond militia here in what is now Chimborazo Park, right down the street. After a brief skirmish, he came through here, like I said, put his troops here at St. John's, and then the next day went west and burned Richmond. So keep that in mind. And now let's talk about Jacqueline Ambler. And the spelling for Jacqueline we'll put right here. Even though his name was Jacqueline, he was known as Jack. So we're just going to call him Jack. So Jack was born in Yorktown in 1742, and he was the son of Richard Ambler and Elizabeth Jacqueline. He was one of 9 children, and his family owned a lot of property on Jamestown Island and also in Yorktown. He went to William and Mary Grammar School, graduated from college at the College of Philadelphia in 1761. Now, his future wife, Rebecca Lewis Burwell, grew up in Tidewater, Virginia, and was orphaned at the age of 10. And so she moved to Yorktown to live with her aunt and uncle. Her father had died of what they called a nervous complaint or a disorder of the mind, probably depression or possibly bipolar disorder. And this is something that Rebecca also suffered. She suffered from this nervous complaint also later in her life. Now, at the age of 16, her brother introduced her to a friend of his at the College of William and Mary, and this friend turned out to be Thomas Jefferson. Now, her name might ring a bell with some of you all who know the story of Rebecca and young Jefferson, but Jefferson was absolutely smitten with Rebecca, and for some reason he called her Fair Belinda. That was his pet name for her. And the story goes that Jefferson courted Rebecca for about 2 years and proposed twice. Both proposals, from what I've read, were awkward. I mean, just not successful. Awkward at best, let's put it that way. And Rebecca said no twice. Well, fortunately for Rebecca and Jack, they met in 1764 and got married. And the story is that when Jefferson heard of their engagement, he got one of his migraines. Apparently, during stressful times, Jefferson would get these migraines. And what's interesting, if you go to monticello.org, you can read about his migraines, these headaches he used to have under times of stress. In the Thomas Jefferson Encyclopedia, if you search under headaches, you can see him talking about these migraines in his correspondence. I think that's interesting stuff. But back to Rebecca Jack. They were a good couple. They both have deep religious convictions, and they had a long and successful relationship. By then, Jack had inherited his father's mercantile business and was doing very well. And then he became a member of the Council of State under Governor Thomas Jefferson during the Revolutionary War. Now, how awkward is that? Jefferson's rival for Rebecca's affections is now on his council, on his privy council. So I just can't imagine some awkward situations that must have come from that. But by 1780, Jack and his family moved to Richmond from Williamsburg, and he rents a very humble house he moved his family here, put him in a humble house. And his daughter Elizabeth describes their experience of moving to Richmond and their new home in this way. It is indeed a very lovely situation, and may be at some future period a great city, but it will at present afford scarcely one comfort of life. And although our family can scarcely stand up together in it, my father has determined to rent it as the only decent tenement on the hill. Okay, so now we're at 1780. Jack's here with his family in Richmond, and we're getting to Arnold's raid. So early in January 1781, Governor Jefferson is getting wind of Arnold making his way to Richmond. And Jefferson, the council members, and the state legislature are realizing the danger they're in, and they make a quick exit from Richmond, let's just put it that way. So Jack and Rebecca, they take their children, and they get out of Dodge. And Elizabeth, she has a great comment on Arnold's raid, and she said, "Should it be confirmed that the British are really coming up James River, my poor mother will not continue a moment. Poor dear soul, what sufferings are hers." And this could be a reference also to her mother's disorder of the mind. But I would imagine if the British were coming, I would be stressed out too. So completely understandable. And Elizabeth goes on to say, "Such terror and confusion you have no idea of. Governor, council, everybody scampering." So Jack takes his family and they go off to Hanover County to ride it out in the woods. And they're able to avoid capture by the British, who are out searching for the governor and the governor's council. In the meantime, Arnold is putting Richmond to the torch. Now, after the war, the war ruined Jack financially. However, in 1782, he's appointed the state treasurer, and he holds that position until his death in 1798. And what I love is that Jack was also a vestry member here. He was a vestryman here. He served that position from 1785 to 1798. Now we know that Jack is buried here at St. John's Church, but we don't know the location. Now his wife Rebecca, she dies in 1806 and is buried next to Jack. However, again, we don't know their location. Now I mentioned Elizabeth, who is one of Jack and Rebecca's daughters, and she goes on to marry Colonel Edward Carrington, and he's buried here. And we believe that she is buried somewhere here, but we don't know the exact location. Now Elizabeth and Edward, they're a great story, and they're going to get their own separate vlog, so I won't go into any detail with that. Now another one of Jack and Rebecca's daughter is Mary Willis Ambler. She goes on to marry John Marshall, future Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. John Marshall calls her Polly, and she also may have had the family's nervous complaint. So again, what do Thomas Jefferson, Jacqueline Ambler, Benedict Arnold, and Rebecca Ambler have in common? St. John's Church. That's the answer. Because Benedict Arnold camped his troops here on his way. And you know what? We're glad he camped his troops here, because he may have burned this place down. So that we're okay with him camping his troops here. He left the place. Jacqueline Ambler, of course, is connected to St. John's because he's a vestry member, or was a vestryman, and he's buried here. Rebecca, she's also connected to St. John's because she's buried here. And Thomas Jefferson. Now, he's not only just connected to Jack and Rebecca personally and professionally, but don't forget, he was here during the Second Virginia Convention, March 23rd, 1775. He witnessed Patrick Henry's world-changing liberty or death speech. So that's the answer, St. John's Church. Now, you don't need to wait for me to tell you stories about the graveyard. I want to do a plug for this book. The Burying Ground at Old St. John's Church is an amazing book. It's written by Judith Bowen Sherman. She is a longtime church member and a longtime volunteer in the church archives. So I owe a lot of credit, or I owe her a debt of gratitude, because it's wonderful information in here about people who are buried in the graveyard. She does these little snippets of about 50 families. And this book is available for sale on our website. So if you'd like to get a copy and learn more about St. John's Church, we encourage you to do so. Also, if you want to learn more about Rebecca Lewis Burwell, Thomas Jefferson's Fair Belinda, you can read about her in Dr. John Kukla's book, Mr. Jefferson's Women. And again, on our YouTube channel, you can see an interview that I have with Dr. Kukla talking about Patrick Henry the Man. So that just means you got to learn more. Check out our Facebook page. We're doing tons of new events now, all in the virtual realm. And check out our YouTube channel. And I'm very much looking forward to coming back with another vlog about the amazing history of St. John's Church, a National Historic Landmark. Thanks. Bye.